Welcome everyone to Perpetua Growth Sessions. We're here with an awesome group of amazing individuals who are absolute experts when it comes to e-commerce advertising and CPG advertising. We have Alison, the founder of Haven's Kitchen, and we have Suzanne, the head of agency partnerships at Instacart. As everyone knows, Instacart advertising has grown very, very significantly over the past year. Many advertisers are new to Instacart advertising. Many technology partners like us are new to Instacart advertising, and it's been a journey for all of us together. So I'd really just love to kick it off with you, Suzanne, and tell us what is Instacart advertising at a high level, and what can brands expect from Instacart advertising?
Yeah, so Instacart, I hope all of you know, is a four-sided marketplace, and it's a place for customers to come and do their shopping, save time, find the brands that they love at the stores that they love, and then get that time back to spend it with their family. Instacart advertising has been around for a while, but probably in like December 2019, Seth Dallaire came over from Amazon, and his focus as Chief Revenue Officer at Instacart has been completely around rebuilding or building our ads business. I would say the foundational piece of Instacart advertising is our featured product, which is essentially our search results.
Pay-per-click ad and search, something that performance marketers have known for many, many years, from Google and then Amazon and now Instacart. And Alison, who is a self-proclaimed non-techie, accurate?
It's fully accurate, yeah.
You're now an e-commerce advertising savant after this past year. Instacart was your gateway drug, and you can't get enough of it.
Never going back. Yeah.
Tell me about your journey into Instacart advertising. How did this all begin?
Yeah, I mean, it's we had a weird situation where in April 2020, we went global with Whole Foods. In September, we brought on 600 Targets, 600 Krogers, about 1,000 independents, across the Northeast and West Coast and some in between. And we had no idea how to build awareness. We had no idea how to let people know that we were on the shelf, regardless. And then you add people not going into stores on top of that, and we were kind of just terrified. So
can I pause you there really quickly? What would you do previously? Like if Instacart advertising didn't exist and you had all this retailer growth, and there wasn't a pandemic, what would you have done to raise awareness of your products in stores?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had like a better answer. Our plan was all in Whole Foods. Our plan was, about $300,000 worth of demos in key Whole Foods across the country. And it was a very sort of old school, you build natural, you build Whole Foods, you get that going, and then you start kind of, going out to the more conventional. It was not a very good plan at the end of the day. And what ended up happening was, even though COVID sort of, like the trigger, it made us rethink all of our marketing plans, right? Because Wegmans, again, is a notorious troublesome account for new brands. They are an EDLP. They don't let you do demos. They don't promote. We are in a brand new category, in a refrigerator with a door in the middle of the store, like next to kimchi. It's a challenging place to be on a good day.
And what do you sell, by the way, for those that aren't familiar with Haven's Kitchen? Why is that a challenge? What are your products?
Fresh squeezy sauces. So there's a chimichurri, a harissa, a romesco, a golden tahini. They're fresh, HPP, super clean ingredient sauces in pouches that you can squeeze to use as dressings, marinades, dips, etc. They are new flavors for a lot of stores. They're in, a pouch, which is new for a lot of stores. They're refrigerated and super fresh, which is not where the consumer naturally goes to buy sauce. So we have a number of things that we need to do to educate the consumer. Going back to the question, our plan for 2020 was like completely laser focused on whole foods. But when demos went away, suddenly we found ourselves with, a nice chunk of money to spend, but we also started thinking outside of Whole Foods, and we started thinking about the fresh markets of the world and the independents and the Wegmans. And that led us to Instacart.
Okay. Enter Instacart. What was next?
Basically, I went on this founder Slack I'm on, and I was like, hello, anybody, Instacart. And fortunately, Chris Mo from Cartograph introduced me to Adam. And I was like, I know there's something here. I know that, this is a way for us to get found and a way for us to get bought. I think of it honestly, equally marketing as sales in a lot of ways. And I need to be on there, but we are a very small team. This is not what we do. We aren't used to Google and all the things you mentioned, the pay-per-click stuff. We'd never done that. So we met you.
The keywords were new. This whole idea of bidding on keywords, cost per click.
You met me at the beginning. I was like, can I choose my keyword? Because I think we would go really, and you were like, why don't we'll see how it goes. It took me a long time to understand what was going on, but you see results, and there's something intuitive even for a Luddite, that there's a way to get into people's carts. And once you're in those carts, they are rebuying what's in those carts. And this is the opportunity to get in them. And so it's been working. So it's great.
Awesome. And Suzanne, I am sure that you have heard very similar stories to Alison, whether it be at the beginning of the pandemic or whether it be right now, a little over a year in. When advertisers come to you with these stories, how do you advise them in getting started with Instacart ads?
Yeah, sure. I think the important thing to think about is how a brand's content is actually getting on Instacart. So we have 45,000 different retailers that live within our marketplace. And each of those retailers on a daily basis is sending over their data feeds to us. So we know exactly what products are on shelf. And we can accurately reflect the product availability in each of those stores. The one thing to note, though, is it's not immediate. And we talked about this earlier, Alison. As soon as you get into a Wegmans doesn't mean that Wegmans tomorrow will be sending over your product through the data feed. It is a little bit of a process. You can always go to your Instacart account executive who is assigned to your business to get an understanding if that product is live. If it's not, the next best step is to go to that retailer to get an understanding of when exactly it is going to be live. And from there, once you know your product is showing up in the channel, like I said before, we put a lot of emphasis around $1 being your investment in feature product. It really is the foundational piece to how customers find you, and definitely the most important part of winning on our platform. Another thing to point out is that Instacart search is incredibly top heavy. And what I mean by that is regardless of if the customer is doing an actual keyword search or if they're just browsing a category, we see the vast majority of conversions come from those top 3 spots within the result page. So really winning and appearing in these top spots is really important to a brand to succeed on Instacart. Other things to just highlight in terms of kind of very tactically, like how you rank is based on your bid price, as well as your relevancy with our relevancy algorithm. And that all of featured product or search lives within our self-serve platform, which actually is only probably a year old at this point. But what's great about that platform is we also give brands guidance on what is a strong bid price. So they're not just like throwing numbers out there and completely in the dark. Also, it's not the same. That consumer on Instacart does not shop the same exact way the consumer on Amazon shops. So you can't just use your strategies and bid prices that you're using on Amazon and Instacart. They don't necessarily work. Where Amazon's spear fishing, Instacart is very much a full cart. So really,
what do you mean by that?
Mean that like we have, with all of the 600 different banner grocers on our site, you can go in and you put your zip code in, and you can shop at almost any of the retailers that offer delivery or pickup within your area. So in many cases, people, they're coming for a full shop, and they might be doing it at different retailers.
Got it. And what is the customer journey like at Instacart? So someone like Alison, who probably isn't spending tens and thousands of dollars initially, is that fair to say, Alison?
That's fair to say, Adam.
Will come into Instacart and be like, if they weren't working with someone like us, they'd be like, I'm interested in advertising. Where do I go? Do you immediately refer a partner? I know that there's launch specialists at Instacart for emerging brands. And there's specifically a team around emerging brands to activate new advertisers on Instacart. Can you speak to the customer journey a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you launch on Instacart, we do have launch specialists who will help you to get your campaigns up and running. They'll help you to understand exactly what the products are that we have on our site, and more importantly, help you within the self-serve tool so that you guys have an understanding of how to launch a campaign, but then more importantly, how to optimize a campaign. As the business starts to grow, we also have different sales teams and the emerging team, which the launch team lives within. They are broken down by the key categories that you would see within our marketplace. And then we have a category team, I would say, that handles like the top 100 down advertisers. And then we also have the scale team, which is more focused on the big CPG matrixed companies that go across multiple aisles.
Makes sense. And so that's a good, helpful analysis or foundation of Instacart Ads. And Alison, you mentioned that you felt like it was working and it seemed obvious. How did you know?
Yeah, I mean, when you see, I just brought up our numbers. Our average sales per week at Wegmans increased 75% post Instacart ads. Velocities increased 40% post Instacart ads. Now, again, like there are other things at play. We lowered our EDLP a little bit. I think that was the Wegmans thing. At Fresh Market, we increased distribution a little bit, but we still saw that I wrote down 2020 average case shipments per month increased 70% post Instacart ads. So we had been in Wegmans for a while. We had been in the Fresh Market for a while. Some of this was new distribution, as I said, but for the most part, we were doing fine. We started doing significantly better.
How quick was that?
I mean, couple months. I mean, we started, I think, I don't remember when we started with you, August maybe. And these numbers are pretty fresh. So by the end of the year, we knew that they were definitely working. And I mean, we just, I think, added another chunk to the budget. So, it's hard. I think there's always like other factors. It's not necessarily like perfect apples to apples, but I am fairly confident that the numbers wouldn't look like this if we weren't doing the ads.
That's
so interesting
great to
too.
hear.
sorry to interrupt, but like you are in a tough space in that you're building out this kind of new location for an existing category. And that's what's so unique about Instacart and well, e-commerce in general really is like you don't have to fall within this one category and break through in as you would in a brick and mortar world.
100%. Yeah. People don't have to go into like weird spots to find you. You're right there. And they, what we love about e-com for a brand like ours is if you search tahini, we're the only fresh tahini in the grocery store. If you're looking for tahini as a shopper in a brick and mortar, you're not going to the fresh set, right? And whether that's produce or dairy or deli, you're not, which is really, it's like, that's why I think of it again is there's sales and there's awareness. And I think of this as both. And then there's that third component, right? Which is Wegmans having a conversation with us now about expanding us even further because those sales have done as well as they have. It's just this like virtuous cycle. I feel like I sound like an ad for Instacart ads, but like they're just things that work. It's like when you take a Tylenol and you're like, oh wow, my headache went away. Like it actually it works. So it's been a pleasure for us. And I think, going back to what Adam asked at the beginning, I think a lot of brands are asking ourselves like, okay, well, what are we going to do when, demos open up again? What are we going to do when trade shows open up again? I don't know that we're going to be participating in a whole lot of either. I think that there's something to be said for taking the $15,000 from Expo West and putting it into, making sure that you are getting pull on the shelves you're in because you're adding this layer of marketing to it. Because you see that cycle, yeah.
Would you tell someone like Wegmans, hey, I know that you don't see these metrics and I don't see these metrics particularly coming from Wegmans, but just to let you know, we're investing thousands of dollars a month on Instacart advertising, and we've seen this as a really great way to accelerate sales in your stores.
I think that the brands that, to me, the most thoughtful brands like that, and I like to consider ourselves one of them. When we are building a relationship with our buyer at a retailer, we are sending them updates on everything we're doing, right? Like just the way that you're saying, hi, I'm doing couponing, I'm doing targeted digital ads, I'm doing, these are the press hits that we're getting. This is the email specific to your retailer that we're sending out to people in your particular, demographic. This is a part of that ecosystem, right? And I think what's happened in COVID is the lines have gotten a little bit blurrier. What qualifies as a grocery store, right? What qualifies as sales? What qualifies as marketing? All, e-com is just, it's just a whole new world. And I think it's hitting food and grocery arguably right later than other categories. But our job is to build really strong relationships with the people that have invested in us by giving us shelf space. And part of that responsibility for me is building that relationship and letting them know all of the levers that we're pulling to support them.
That's great to hear. It's almost like a investor update. As like a founder who's had external investors, you tell your investor everything. Or if someone is not investing in you and you want them to invest in you, you say, hey, on a quarterly basis, I'm just going to tell you all the things that we've been up to, whether they matter or not. 100%. I'm just going to let you know that information. And Instacart ads, the thousands of dollars that you're spending on a given month on Instacart ads are one of those things that I'm going to tell you about.
100%. And I think that, most buyers I know see themselves as investors in your brand. They have a limited amount of shelf space. They cannot have everyone there. And so they're giving you an opportunity to put you on shelf, and you at that point have to do everything you can to keep that spot and earn that spot, right? And the more communicative you can be with that buyer and, tell them all the things you're doing to keep that spot and get people pulling you off that shelf, the better. It's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. If they'll listen, some of them don't open the email.
That's fair. That happens. That's part of being a founder, right, Alison?
I send video messages to my buyers and I can track if they're open, and none of them are, but I make them. One might not open it, but
I love it.
Yeah. Alison, we spoke about metrics, and beyond the core advertising metrics around keywords, cost per click, attributed sales, ROAS, Instacart offers a pretty robust set of unique metrics in and of itself. The acronym is ISIP, right?
Yep. Instacart Consumer Intelligence Platform.
I was chatting with a colleague yesterday who said, and we've been working together for almost 2 years now, in this world of e-commerce advertising, there is an obnoxious amount of acronyms. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, Suzanne, I would love to learn more about ISIP. And I think Alison would as well.
I would.
Okay, great. So like I said earlier, Instacart Consumer Intelligence Platform is what it stands for, but we do call it ISIP. And it's really been a huge area of focus for us this year. But it's essentially giving, first party data insights toolkit, essentially beyond just the table stakes metrics that you get from a campaign management perspective. And so what I mean by that is really understanding things like shopping cart dynamics. How many baskets am I in? What else is in the basket when customers are buying my product? How often was something added to the basket, but actually not found in store? So out of stocks. We also look at category metrics. What's happening to your market share compared to the rest of your competition. And then things like customer dynamics. So, what percentage of my customers are new to Instacart? What percentage are new to the brand? Based on what I've seen in the e-commerce space, really the amount of first party data that we make available to our partners is really unmatched. And so it's really about getting to a point where it's beyond just campaign management. We want to help you to get smarter about your business, but more importantly, how to market to these consumers who are mass moving online from a grocery perspective, and also how to promote the products in this new environment.
And also, that's amazing for us, right? Because we're creating a new category. And buyers are like, are you dairy? Are you produce?
Right.
And we get to sort of, if we have that basket data and the significant, other portion of the basket is produce, veggies, et cetera, that's a very easy thing for us to put in a deck and just say, we're just incremental to a produce basket already. Just put us next to the cauliflower and we'll do the rest.
Right.
Like that's super helpful. As is the out of stocks, because that is the thorn in the side of all of us. We all have our slots, and unfortunately, a lot of inventory management nonsense happens at the store level, and people go and they're looking, and you're either out of date or you're not on shelf, and it's so the more that we're armed as brands with that information, and we can go back and say, listen, we're doing all of this marketing spend. We're really working with you as a good partner, but people are going to buy us and they can't. It gives us a little bit of, ammunition, which is really
great. That's great. And I think the one thing also to call out for ISIP is we aren't charging for this like the way you would charge for IRI and Nielsen. But what we do is we structure the data in tiers, and we take a look at your investment level and we compare it to your total sales on the site for the quarter. And based on your reinvestment level, that's how you unlock more and more insights. And what I really like about this, especially for a challenger brand like yourself or emerging brand, is, this levels the playing field, right? Where in the brick and mortar world, you don't necessarily have that. So it's giving, the smaller challenger brands have the same exact process that the big, large CPGs. And you're also looking at it holistically of every retailer that's in our marketplace. So it is full funnel. You are seeing every purchase behavior that happens on our platform of 45,000 retailers.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Adam, Ellie signed us up, right? That was why we just added more budget to get that.
I think so.
Okay.
There are some caveats to get in there, right, Suzanne? It has to be for a prolonged period of time.
So we look at it quarterly. So we just wrapped up Q1. So what we'll do is we will look at everyone's spend compared to their total sales on the site for Q1, and then that will tell us the level of reporting that you received in Q2.
So us adding budget to Q2, we will then see that in Q3. Is that how?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Suzanne, what are the thresholds of percentage of sales reallocated into spend to unlock tiers within ISIP?
Yeah, so I can go up. So tier 3 is 5 to 7%. Tier 2 is 7.5 to whatever, 8, 9. And then tier 1 is 10% reinvestment level. And tier 3 is where you really start to unlock the basket, the category, and the consumer insights.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I was most interested in is just you get the cities. You got to see what cities people are purchasing your products.
Regions. Yep.
Yeah, regions. And then types of retailers. I know that I don't want to go into the not getting actual retailer data, but getting information about types of retailers from Instacart is a nice way to have an understanding of that. So Alison, we mentioned this world of trade shows and demos, and you were spending tens and thousands of dollars on those. Is Instacart a reallocation of those dollars, or is Instacart now just a line item in and of itself that you will have always on?
I mean, I think it's always going to be on. Whether or not the other things come back is the question. But there's a bucket of money, and it's not endless. And I would say that part of it is the IRL trade shows and demos, but I think also
for a non-CPGer here, can you explain IRL?
In real life?
Oh, that one.
Come on, Adam.
I mean,
I'm sorry. I thought that this was like a trade show of some sort.
No,
I thought that this was like a metric with a retailer
versus techie.
Oh man, so I spend a lot of time in real life.
There was a thought, right, at the beginning of COVID that a lot of us had, where we're like, okay, we need to just buy a ton of ads on Instagram and target, within 5 miles or 10 miles or 20 miles from the stores, and send people to a store locator that shows them. And it's very clunky. Right? It's very hard to know what's actually working. You have to be a data magician to be able to separate out if Instagram ads are actually sending people into stores, and if they go to stores, or what is that conversion? It's very
and you don't have a performance marketing team. You're not working with an external agency. It's someone else on your team.
We actually are working with an agency, but
Got it.
Agency, there's no way to directly correlate an ad to a conversion, right? You're sending people to a store locator. They then have to type in their thing. You're hoping that they go to the store, and then you're hoping that they buy a sauce pouch, but we don't know. So we have no idea what that CAC is, right? To use an Adam term. But So I think Instacart ads take a little bit from the in real life marketing, but they also take from what we would maybe be putting into Instagram and Facebook and other social ads, because at least this way we know we're in the stores, we're marketing to people who are shopping, right? And we're getting all of these added benefits. So I mean,
So all the money is going to Instacart.
if my money would go to Instacart. I mean, there's got to be other stuff, right? You need to,
Of course.
personal brand, you have to have a great email, like, CRM. You've got to invest in SEM. There's some things that you have to invest in to build awareness, to, bring like your customers back and build loyalty. But if you are a brand that is focused on retail, not just D2C, to me, if you had to pick a lever to pull, this would be the lever.
Music to Suzanne's ears.
Love it. Thank you.
What do you hear from advertisers, Suzanne? Like, obviously you're chatting with many Alisons on any given day. Where do you hear these budgets coming from? Is it the Instagram unmeasurable ads now going to Instacart, or is it trade show and demos going to Instacart, or is it just a unique line item to itself?
It's honestly a great question. And we get this question a lot just because Instacart doesn't necessarily fit into a traditional CPG manufacturing company's budgeting process. And honestly, I would say it's different for every single manufacturer that we work with. In most cases, I would say we're working with like an e-commerce lead or an omni-channel lead. And where the e-commerce lead or the omni-channel lead sits is like what's been evolving, and that's where how you figure out where the budgets are coming from. A lot of times we're hearing it's coming from the trade budgets, but we're also starting to see brands evolve, and it's now part of a very integrated planning process where they have the sales team, the brand team, the media team, the finance team, their agency team. Everybody's at the table and they're planning in an integrated way, so that it does become its own line item, but with lots of collaboration from other people based on the goals that each of those teams need to see. That we are in a new space, so we have this conversation all of the time, but most of the time what we're seeing right now, it's trade, it's shopper, and it's e-com that these budgets are coming out of.
Yeah.
Is there one that you prefer that ends up being most impactful?
I think that e-com and brand are probably the most impactful. I think where we struggle is with the shopper piece, because so frequently they want to tie it back to what is that incrementality at that specific retailer, and that's just, we're not there yet in terms of the insights that we can give back to those brands.
But coming soon.
I think that also makes sense because we're, a brand like ours, I feel like that the whole, what's above, what's below, what's in trade, what's in marketing, that whole, we're going to have a completely different model in a year.
Yeah.
That's like such an anachronistic model already, right? Taking Instacart out, even just like a Kroger trade spend versus a Kroger.com spend, technically they're in very different buckets right now, although arguably they're all feeding the same beast.
Right.
And then you have to keep your trade within a specific percentage bucket. So there are all these like dangling chads almost, right? Because of this new ecosystem And we were all trying to figure out how to make the model work, because there's all this new stuff. So
And to make it more confusing, isn't Kroger an Instacart partner as well?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all, no, it's like you said, everyone's just trying to figure this out. All of a sudden, something that was going to take 3 to 5 years, just like boop, overnight. So there's catching up to do. The fun thing for us is that we're so young and we're so new that we're just like new with the newness.
Yeah.
I think if you're an older brand and a more established brand, this might take some getting used to. We're just kind of, every week there's something interesting to learn.
Yeah. Allows you to be more nimble too.
Yeah, and take a little bit more risk and play around a little bit more, because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't have a whole lot to lose at this moment. It's just fun seeing things go up.
And that ability to experiment is what brought you here, is what brought you to Instacart. Like you weren't sold on it initially, and now you're all in.
That's right. Well, you in our first meeting, you kind of leaned back in your chair, and I was like, "What's this guy selling us?" But it wasn't an Instacart issue; it was an Adam issue.
Good job, Adam.
I don't know if that's a compliment or just calling me a greasy sales guy, but we're working together either way.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. We're all in.
And so she's all in, Suzanne, getting so many more retailers, so many more sales. What's next beyond featured products? Like, what should Alison do?
Yeah.
How does she like really grow her brand on Instacart?
Yeah. Who's doing it well so I can copy them?
I would say, a good second dollar, Alison, is our coupon unit. And you can promote either single or 2 unit coupons. And as an advertiser, you pay by redemption. So really great opportunity to drive trial and bring, if you have an existing offline coupon strategy, to the online world. It is definitely one of those things where, you couple featured product and coupon, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 acceleration. And we can certainly share some case studies with you on that.
Right.
I would say the next area of investment would be our hero unit. And I compare that to essentially an end cap at the end of a store in brick and mortar. But you basically own a department or an aisle page, and you own it for a week. It's a reservation process, but good opportunity to get more top of the funnel brand awareness. And you can do it, like you were saying before, like if you wanted to do it in the vegetable category, you can own that. So, brands recognize, or consumers recognize your brand outside of that category as well. Both of those products don't live within our self-serve tool. So you do need to work with your salesperson or your account executive at Instacart to work through that. But it's an insertion order process and a reservation order process.
Ellie will just do that, Adam.
Ellie is our e-commerce associate at Perpetua, who is the equivalent of the person at Instacart. So yeah, Ellie can help you out with that. Suzanne, okay. There are limitations to this. So similarly, in that you need to spend a certain amount to get those activated. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What are those thresholds?
There's different tierings that kind of align with the way our ISIP tiers work. So I'm happy to share that with you, Alison.
I would love it. My brand director, who's like actually the person who should have been on the panel because she's just better at this stuff than I am. But I was like, I think I can use the panel as an opportunity to ask some questions. Like, what questions do we have? And she's like, you just like say hello and then build the rapport, and then I'll ask all the questions. So I'm like,
Well, are there any questions that you'd like to ask while we're all here?
I mean, her big question was, I think a lot of times emerging brands, like we work with, agencies and service providers, and a lot of times we just don't know what we don't know. And so the question is always, what are successful brands doing? What are some things that we could do that we don't even know that are possibilities? What do you see working? Those questions. I mean, I think, Suzanne gave me, like, I took notes during what she was saying. So I feel like I understand my next steps. But, I think my big question to you, Suzanne, is if you were me and you had an emerging brand and you were in the, somewhere between 5 and 10 million sales annually, what would you be doing?
Yeah. I think the important piece to start is really just making sure you're really at like max exposure on featured products. So making sure like all of your hero UPCs are there, that you're live, you're not going dark too early. That is key. And for those people on the phone who don't know, like you can set up your campaign as either max impressions, which means you're live until your budget runs out, or you can do daily pacing, which means, you put a start date, an end date, you give us a budget, and we pace that out evenly over the number of days that you're live. And how we pace that, though, in some cases, people are being pulled down early, and they're being pulled down at, 8 a.m. Pacific or 11 a.m. Pacific. So you're missing a lot of time there. So search is featured product foundational. Making sure you're maxing out there is how I would start. And then I would say the second component are the hero unit to get the brand awareness out there, and then coupon to drive trial.
Great. And I had another question about like a Syndigo. I think for us, for the first several months, it was frustrating. It's good to know that, it's not an Instacart issue when you don't show up. It's a retailer issue. That's challenging for brands because they tend to not be very responsive in general. Not all
retailers, the retailers.
So you're like eager to show up and to get into people's carts. And then it takes a while. And then sometimes they just don't put you on their website for whatever reason. And so you're not flowing through, or however it works exactly. But I think another frustration for early brands is that sometimes old photos show up, or weird pictures and like weird descriptions. And so how important would you say sort of having that sort of asset management piece to make sure that you're looking good when you are, a featured product and all of that stuff, and consistent across retailers?
I would say that's really important. And like, as you said, we do work with like 10 different content service providers, Syndigo, Salsify, another example, where if you do work with them, we override the retailer content with that content service provider content. So we do see a lot of brands working that way. I do have some good news for you though, Alison. We're launching a media center in probably late Q2.
Oh.
What's that?
So we can control what we look like?
You'll be able to upload that kind of stuff on your own.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So it's really huge. It's been, a big frustration, not only for our partners, our CPG manufacturers, but also our sales team, right? Because, we want to get you guys answers. We want to make sure everything's correct. But it's kind of been a black hole. So to be able to have that functionality right within the tool is a huge win.
Especially when you're young like us, we change our packaging, at least once a year. We're just refining and iterating and making it better. And then to have these old things from like when you first started, and like they look like half used pouches or whatever on the thing, not our best foot forward. So that's great to hear. This is super fun.
What else is coming up, Suzanne? What else can we expect?
So more to come on just, getting featured product functionality, improve that. So, making it just easier to make a buy within our self-serve platform, and giving you guys pretty accurate bid recommendations based on what your goals are. So that feature set within featured product, it is coming. And then I would say another big bet is our display advertising. So, it's been kind of limited, and, the challenge we hear all the time is, impulse purchases have basically gone away, right? And like that product that you would just find as you're browsing through a store might not necessarily, happen anymore. So how do we, what type of display offerings can we offer so that we can do more of that brand awareness? So that's also stuff that our team is looking at. And
is there a timeline for that? That sounds super exciting.
I would say
ads.
as soon as the end of Q2, you should see some new display offerings being rolled out.
Is that on a self-serve basis? Is that via IOs?
It is via IOs to start. Eventually, we want all of our products to be within self-serve, but that will obviously take some time.
I have a question. This might be really just super Luddite-y, but the question is like, if someone is, let's say, for example, in Wegmans and they add a skirt steak, is there ever a capability to be like, hey, you might like chimichurri with that? Because we make a chimichurri. Just to be clear.
Yeah, so that's actually something that we're looking at as well. Right now, there's like tests around. You might also like type of features. So yes, I would say, that is a product that we're looking at as well.
But theoretically, that could be happening right now via advertising, right? So if I have a skirt steak in my Your Items button, Your Items section of the app, ads do appear there, not just search. I'm not sure of the exact percentage, but there is a small number of ads that you can't totally control that appear in the Your Items section. So theoretically, that could be occurring right now, right, Suzanne?
And in the organic results of Your Items,
or even in the paid result, there's ads in Your Items right now, right?
Yep. So there's ads that, yes, the top 3 placements are still there. In terms of Your Items, that's, I would say, like a growing percentage of how our conversions are happening, or the path to cart is coming from Your Items. So yes, cool. That could be happening.
We'd love reporting on that. That's a wish list for all of us out there. Your Items reporting and non-search reporting is obviously a big one that I hope is coming soon.
Yeah, and we also hear about like the default bid, which the default bid is what we use for that browse functionality. So the Your Items, and when you click on a category, so understanding, what I think the tracking is not in place yet, because right now we can't action it against it, right? Like there's just the one default bid. Once we get to a point where you can change your bid based on the placement, then you'll be able to provide the tracking for that.
And our company will then provide placement optimization to set your target ROAS regardless of placement. Will get you the most amount of sales.
Yes, you will, Adam.
That's what we're working on. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Suzanne and Alison. We end a growth sessions with one question for everyone, and it's a prediction. We like predictions. Suzanne, I'll ask you to go first, given you just gave us a what's coming next. So it might be a little duplicitous, but what is your prediction for e-commerce and e-commerce advertising specifically in 2021?
Well, I think it's going to continue to grow. That's so easy.
Great call.
But I think we'll eventually get to a point where brands are not necessarily only focused on the bottom line, but they're also focused on the fact where I need to go where the consumers are and where the growth is, and be able to delight those consumers from an e-commerce perspective.
Love it. Alison?
I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but I think that these lines that are blurring, I have a lot of friends that have digitally native brands that are really trying to figure out their wholesale strategies, because I think they're starting to realize that there is a limit to that growth just selling online. And everyone is starting to recognize that the grocery store has a place in the ecosystem. Maybe it's a little bit of a marketing place in some ways, as opposed to just a sales place, but it has a place. So I think the digitally native kids are trying to figure out their grocery strategy. And I think the sort of retail origin brands, we're all trying to figure out our D2C strategy. And then in between, you have these other e-com partners that weren't partners before, right? That like marketplaces are popping up all over the place that would not have been considered a traditional grocery sales, partner in the past. So I think there's going to be a lot of blurring of lines, and then after that, there'll be a lot of sort of figuring out the lanes and a kind of a reshuffling of the whole ecosystem. I know you're talking all about, omnichannel. I think it's like unichannel. I think it's just like one big freaking channel. Basically.
Sale is a sale, a marketing dollar is a marketing dollar.
And just like Suzanne said, if your goal is to be wherever the consumer is and delight them wherever they are, then everything has to ladder up to one main thing, and figuring out how you slice and dice that is going to be the challenge of each individual company.
Profound.
Deep stuff.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Thank you very much, Alison. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Excited to work with you both in the coming years. This was great. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.